So today we're going to be talking about classroom management. I'm going to start off with a basic definition, and then I'm going to talk more in detail about what specifically goes into it and some of the pros of it. So basic definition would be the process by which the teachers in the school create and maintain the appropriate behavior that they would like their students to have throughout the day in their classroom and within the school as a whole. Some of the pros of it is that it improves learning because it puts focus on the teacher instead of behavior and misbehaviors within the classroom. It facilitates social and emotional growth, so it helps them work better with each other because they are using the proper behavior towards each other as well as in the classroom towards a teacher or towards outside people. It also creates an orderly classroom environment because everyone's focused on the task instead of on how they should be acting. So, setting up the classroom is a very big role when it comes to everything, and you start off at the beginning of the year choosing one way. So, three ways that may be beneficial would be either in a U shape with the teacher in the front of the room, which is what my professor did when I was in ASL, so that all of our focus was on the teacher in the front as she was signing to us, and we could also look around the room to the other students to watch them sign to each other as well, so that we could understand better what everyone was talking about, see what everyone was doing, see if we're all on the same pace and if anyone needed help. Another way would be in rows and columns with the teacher still at the front of the room, which would be like the blackboard at the front. So it's really beneficial for lectures, and in a lot of high school classrooms, that's the basic setup of it, would be you focused forward, ready to take notes, ready to take tests, or anything that the teacher is going to give you. The last way would be in groups, which is what we do for my first grade class that I am placed in for this semester. And it's so the kids still have someone if they need some help, so they don't always have to go to the teacher, but they still can all turn and look and face the front if directions being given from the front. They can also look behind if the teacher's walking around and has to give an announcement. They can all look in the same direction. So next would be on the first day of school, you definitely want to set rules and what to expect from your students for the rest of the year. So for younger students, I think that creating rules together, coming up with some basic rules together, like when it's appropriate to talk, letting them know exactly when things will be, having them give you input on what they think should be a rule or what should be a reward even if they do well, if they give proper behavior to you. For older students, it's typically going to be you're given a syllabus and you hand it out and you explain to them exactly what's in the syllabus and what you expect. So it's going to be a list of rules that you're going to follow through with, and they have to follow through with as well. It can't just be one-sided, or else they won't be willing to listen later on if you try to enforce it later. For the rules, you don't want to use vague rules. You also want to make sure that you tailor them to the grade level that you're in. So for younger kids, you don't want to give these really difficult rules on what to do when they come in or what you expect from them. You want to make sure you're giving to them in word choice that they would know and they're going to understand. And for the older kids, it's just going over the syllabus and telling them exactly what you want from them and making sure that you're being very specific about if there's a time and place to do something, or like if you expect them to go before class to the bathroom or to the nurse or anything like that, or if you expect them to eat in class or not. Don't put any rules down that you're unwilling to enforce. Otherwise, they may try to break other rules since you didn't enforce the other one that was given to them. Don't ignore bad behavior. If someone's not behaving right, punish them then and there. Don't wait till later when the problem already has seemed to gone away. All that it does is it increases their likeliness to make the same bad behavior later on in the school year or later on in the class. It doesn't just change. They don't just realize it themselves. You have to actually enforce what you want them to do. If there's inconsistent behavior in a student, Make sure that you keep reinforcing the right way to do it. Don't engage in it and allow them to keep acting the same way. You don't want to start off the year by using harsh punishments, by like sending them to out of school suspension or in school suspension or down to the principal. You want to try to deal with it as much as you can within the classroom. So start with like, maybe you shouldn't behave like that. Here's a different way that you can do it and get a better outcome. Like if you're yelling at me for attention, maybe you could come over and quietly say my name and ask, or raise your hand and I'll come over and help. So give them other options instead of just sending them out of the classroom somewhere else to get them away from you. Because that makes them think that you don't want them there anyways. So they're going to act out more because they want to leave. Don't punish an entire class either. Punishing an entire class can be very destructive because you're putting one person's bad behavior on everyone. And if just one person's acting out, that doesn't mean that everyone should be punished for it, because it's gonna enforce bad behavior in everyone, since one person is causing punishment for everyone. If it seems like a problem that is bigger than the classroom, that is bigger than just you, it's smarter to seek outside help. Go to a counselor, a principal, a psychologist within the school, or it might even be smart to go to the parent, or if you're allowed to be in contact with their doctor, go to the doctor and stress your worries and your concerns, or you can even go to your special education program if you think that they need help, like educationally wise, that way, so you're not leaving them behind. Something else that's smart to set up at the beginning of the year is to create a signal. When I was younger, we all had to raise our hands if we saw the teacher raise her hand, and that signaled that everyone should be quiet and focused on her. Other teachers have flipped the light switch to show that they're ready for you to pay attention to them and stop talking. Some teachers will clap in a rhythm. The teacher that I'm currently placed with, if she has everyone lining up and we're getting ready to go out into the hall, she says, eyes forward, and they all say, check. And then she says, hands at the side, and they all say, check. And then she says, mouths quiet, and they all just put their thumbs up because they're quiet, which seems to catch their attention, so they're actually paying attention to what she's saying, and they're actually doing it in order because she can watch them all do it. Another thing would be differentiation. So make sure that you're teaching the proper curriculum for the class and grade level, and then if you're giving out assignments for everyone in the class, it might be smart to give some of the more advanced students some harder questions and give some of the lower students that need more help and need more like probing through the question, give them some simpler, like shorter worksheets so that you'll have more time to work with the kids that need the help while the more advanced ones have more problems to work on. Because the big problem is if they're bored, they're more likely to misbehave because they have nothing else to do. They don't want to sit down and be still, especially if they're younger. They don't just want to sit there. And for older kids, they don't want to be sitting there waiting for the rest of the class. Most of them are going to grab out their phones and start just looking through their phones, and that's when their attention is cut off. So if you had something else planned for afterwards, an older student would already be gone because they're focused on what they're looking at on their phone. A smart thing to do would be create rules on what you expect younger students to do when they first walk in, first thing in the morning, fresh off the bus, when they're all excited because they just got to see their friends. So in my classroom, my placement, they all hang their bags up, and it's the winter now, so they take their boots off, put all their winter stuff in a bag so it doesn't get everything all soaked, and then they grab their folders, put them on their desks so that any homework can be turned in, and then they grab out the iPads from the iPad cart, scan a QR code, and then they listen to a book being read for them before the teacher decides that everyone's ready. And then once the teacher decides that, we all meet on the rug in the front for a morning meditation, so it gets everyone nice and calm at the beginning of the day. Another big thing would be, if you're going to have that routine, make sure you follow it every day. If you change it up on them, especially when they're younger, they might be a little bit more confused, or they might be more apt to act out. Like, we just had Valentine's Day in the school, and because they didn't follow the same routine every single day, they got confused when they came in on Valentine's Day, and they didn't have their snacks in the morning, and they were given, like, outside snacks, so we gave brownies instead of whatever they brought in with them. And a lot of the kids were confused at the end of the day when they were like, we still have our snacks. But they didn't realize that the brownies at the beginning of the day were their snack. So they're very thrown out and pretty distraught, so they were lashing out a little bit more. With younger kids, maybe even older kids, it might be beneficial to give positive phone calls home. Let their parents know what they're doing well, so their parents can continue the praise once the student gets home. So the student starts to realize, if I do good at school, I get rewards when I'm at home as well, not just when I'm at school. Also, writing complimentary notes home so that even the student can see what you think of them, and they can see what they did well, and they can continue the good behavior. Another thing would be try to reward the students so they do positive things throughout the year. Set up one thing that you're going to do, and then continue to do it the entire year to continuously reinforce that positive behavior that they're having. So in the classroom I'm in, we do Mr. Potato Heads, and there's one in the front of the room, and if they do well for specials, they get a piece to it. If they do well for morning routine, they get a piece to it. So it depends on how they're actually behaving for the different chunks and schedules in the day. And once they fill it, they get to choose if they want lollipops, a piece of candy, or a piece of gum. The entire class gets one. Or you could even do, like, if they have positive behavior for an entire month, then give them pizza parties, because it's a bigger reward for a longer amount of time of actually having positive behavior throughout the classroom, instead of just for one student. Another thing would be, if you intend on breaking them up into groups, breaking the students up into groups, or breaking them up into, or putting them off to do research projects, like in the computer lab, it's smart to give them the exact behavior that you want them to have for that task. So the different questions to ask yourself while preparing these rules for specific tasks would be, what behaviors are required to reach the goals of the learning activities? What implications does a particular learning activity have for the students of the students' roles? And how will the teacher prepare the students to take on these roles? So if you're in a science class and you're breaking apart and you have your students working with microscopes, it might be smart to show them how you expect them to hold them, how you expect them to use them, what each part of it does, so on and so forth. If a student is acting bad one day and you have to send them out of the room, so for younger students, if you have to send a student out of the room, it would probably be beneficial for when they come back in the room to let them know, today may not have been good, but tomorrow we can try doing this instead, and we can make it a more positive day, a more positive experience for you. Because if you send a student home just thinking that you're upset at them and that you don't want to see them, and you just ignore them for the rest of the day, they're going to think that you don't want them there and that you don't want to see them, so they're less likely to come back to school, and they're less likely to properly behave because they think you don't want them there, so they're going to do whatever they can so that you make them leave again. So by giving positive enforcement and saying, tomorrow can be better, it doesn't have to be the same, you are giving them an option to do better and to let them know that you think that they can do better and not that you just want them gone every day. Another beneficial thing would be make students think that you're giving them choices. So, if you're planning a project, give them the option of presenting it outright, videotaping it, doing a PowerPoint, or doing a poster. So they get different options for a topic that they may not like, but you're giving them different outlets so that they can better intake. So like if they're going to present out, they want to know as much as they can so they seem smart in front of their peers, so that they don't feel nervous or feel like they just don't know what they're talking about. They're going to want to know more. Another thing would be ask if a project or a worksheet should be done in groups, or if you'd like to do it individually, or as an entire class. It gives the students the option of choosing how they'd like to work, and it makes them feel like they're making these really important decisions, even though you're giving them the options that you want them to have, but you're still giving them a decision. And at any grade level, having a decision feels like you're choosing exactly what you want to do. A way to help the classroom management on a day-to-day basis would be if the class didn't do so well in a certain part the day before. Like if their morning routine was real rough and they were talking too much when they brought their backpacks in and they didn't all get their iPads out in time. The next day, you might want to voice out loud a goal of, okay, tomorrow, let's try to make morning routine go smoothly by, instead of talking, trying to get everything put away and get on our iPad so that we can all be ready for announcements and meditation. And it'll help them be better prepared for what you expect from them that specific day. And it'll help manage their day-to-day classroom management. Another thing is to finish what you start. So if at the beginning of the year you've had this rule in place the entire time that you're going to reward them for doing good at this point in the day, this point in the day, and this point in the day, and that's when you're going to evaluate how well they did, make sure you continue it all year. Because especially with our kids, on one of the special days that they had a assembly, and the teacher forgot to give them points for being well at the assembly. As soon as they got back in the classroom, they're like, where's our points? Where's our points? We all sat quietly, and they're really eager to get those points so they can get gum or a lollipop or something for either that day or the next day, because they want to get there as quickly as possible if they know that they're positively being reinforced for what they've been doing. So, overall, it all starts with how you set the tone and the environment when you first walk in the classroom on that first day of school. If you come in real down and out and not excited for the school year and not prepared for anything, and you have nothing planned for them, no rules, nothing that you expect for them to actually do, they're not going to be a put together class all year. It's going to take time for them to build up to be put together as you build yourself up. If you come in with a positive tone, ready to go, with positive reinforcements, and make sure that you're trying to correct the misbehaving, they're more likely to behave properly the entire year. So, it all starts with you on your first day when you walk in and see your students for the first time of the year.